hey, be yourself. We like who you are. There's a reason why you're here. You don't have to pretend to be someone else. So again, wake up with a positive attitude, come to a place where you're valued of who you are as an individual, and be surrounded by friends and peers and teachers who value who you are and want you to improve for yourself.
In this video, you'll meet Jeff Bavington, who's the director and co-founder of Hudson College in Toronto, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear him explain the reason for co-founding a new school 18 years ago. You'll also hear him explain the importance of diversity in its student population. And you'll also hear about how the school approaches filling in gaps in subjects like math and science so that students create a well-rounded education. So why don't we start with you telling us 3 things that you love about your job?
Oh, good question. I think first and foremost is it's just interacting with children. I mean, children are wonderful for so many reasons, but top of the list is just the wonderful energy that they bring each and every day. So being a part of that and seeing that wonderful energy week over week and month over month would certainly be priority number 1. Also staff too. We have a wonderful staff. I'm biased, of course, but seeing the list of professionals that we have here every day and the amount of effort and energy they put into their jobs is inspiring for myself. And 3 would be, although it's a little different this year, but interacting with parents, getting to see and communicate directly with parents, getting their feedback, being able to talk to them, not just about school, about their everyday lives. That's extremely rewarding for myself as well.
And so, co-founder, can you explain the story behind the school and what led you to create it?
I do. I'll try to give the abbreviated version. It is a personal story. Hudson was founded as a family school. My father, Jack, is still here and helps out in the high school capacity. My story is, I often say, I didn't want to be involved in education. I had 8 educators in my family in total, both parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. I always wanted to be in business for myself, but an interesting thing happens. You become a dad, and my eldest, Alexia, was a January baby. We had her in public school. And I discovered, it was a grade 1 age, that we were originally, Hudson was going to be a preparatory school. So we were going to be a grade 7 to 12 co-ed preparatory school. That's the original envisionment of the school in 2002. But again, going back to my daughter, she was in grade 1 when we opened the school, and not blaming any teachers, but I just saw a real need at a young primary age of being able to help an individual, in this case it was my daughter, with more attention, more focus in her academics, and more personal attention to her as who she was as a young learner. So I had the ability to just change course. And it is literally that simple. That was, again, originally going to be 7 to 12, and took a look at factors and just sort of said, you know what, let's go for it. And so in the second year, we managed to get down to grade 3, and then in the third year down to kindergarten. Here we are 18 years in as a K-12 co-ed school and there's not many of them in the city, K-12. So you could call us crazy, or you could call us inspired.
And the idea behind the school, even before it went all the way from JK to grade 12, when it was still a prep school, what was that need that you were trying to fill with it? And what was the goal of creating your own school outside of the existing options and the public system?
Yeah, no, excellent question. And I'll give a remark that the parent had said to me last year, and she prefaced it by saying, Jeff, please don't take offense to this. And then I heard what I'm about to share with you. And I said, no, absolutely. I feel that this is an inspired comment. And so the comment was, Jeff, you're everything that a public school should be. And what she meant by that, in terms of the level of care, the level of inclusiveness, the level of nourishment, and looking at a child individually, looking who they are, what are they, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what can you help in terms of academic rigor to improve them each and every year, and then adding in all the clubs and activities and other things to help to enrich a child's experience both in and out of class. So I'm glad that that came through, because that was the original intention of the school. And I think as we've grown, you know, now we're exactly 400 students this year, K to 12. I think we have always kept that personal touch, even though we're larger now. We've always been able, both as a staff and students, and looking at the student body, to, you know, we're not so large that you can't look at individual things. So what I mean by that, I used to do an activity with the teachers that was called backward mapping. And here's how it worked. So Carly, you were the grade 5 teacher, I was the grade 6 teacher. We had to give our wish lists of what we hoped were the accumulated skill sets at the beginning of a September that you would want in grade 5 and I would want in grade 6. And don't share that information. And then we would culminate that and look at all the wish lists that we would want, skill-wise, academic-wise, and then say to ourselves, okay, if this is what we wanted at the start of grade 6, for myself, if I'm that hypothetical grade 6 teacher, when would be the earliest that we could teach that skill to a student, so that they, when they, you know, year over year built upon those skills, when they arrived in grade 6 to me now, I would be, you know, they would have those skill sets that I could then launch them forward. So we did this for many years. We don't really have to do it anymore, but it was a wonderful exercise, because it really started to ingrain in all the teachers the idea of, you know, consistency and approach, and looking at curriculum, and looking at the short but the medium and the long haul of the student being in one institution for many years. What could you do, like building blocks, right? What could you do to build upon those skills year over year over year, so that when, you know, you do have them now in a particular grade, you really can kind of launch them forward, you know, to the areas you want to.
Right. And with that kind of building block structure, with that long-term focus or view, do you find that students at Hudson College really do begin at JK, go all the way through grade 12, or are there targeted years that you find people coming to you for different reasons?
Certainly, you have natural intake grades, you know, JK being the one, you know, a big one. Grade 1 is another one. Grade 7 is a large intake year. We go from one class per cohort, JK to grade 6, and then we move up to 2 classes for grade 7, which leads to 2 grade 8 classes and about 3 cohorts in grade 9. And then speaking of grade 9, that would be the 4th most natural intake. So, you know, if a student joins us in grade 7, vast majority you're going to stay through the end of high school. Obviously, the student grows to, it starts in grade 9. Yeah, they're gonna be with us for 4 years. If they join in JK or grade 1, what we see sometimes as trends is they'll be with us, you know, JK to 8, which is 10 years, or grade 1 to grade 8, and then they do have a choice ahead of them, you know, from that grade 8 into grade 9 year. What's interesting is if we have a child exit us, you know, let's say they've spent 8 to 10 years with us, and now 8 into 9, they don't choose other private schools. They actually go to public school.
Oh, wow. Is there a reason for that, you think?
You know what? I've never explicitly asked. I believe it, you know, it could have some of that thought to do with, you know, the grass is greener, maybe, that if you go to a large high school, there might be a sense of larger community that you're joining. You know, we may have, you know, a particular child that's really focused in one area, performing arts, say, for instance, so they might look at one of the alternative TDSB schools that focus in that particular area. That might be a reason.
So for you, what would you say is the biggest attraction for families, for students who ultimately choose Hudson College?
I think if you're looking for a school that really believes in balance, number one, you know, that's we consciously look at balance, and we do that both philosophically, but also practically. We operate on an elementary on an 8-day schedule. Math and English can be every day because they form the core, of course, of the program, but all the other subjects, you name them, science and the arts, those will be balanced a certain amount of times per 8 days over the whole year. So a good example is a student's interested in music. Well, at Hudson, they're going to have music all year. It's going to be a certain amount of periods per 8-day schedule. So a child interested in that particular area will have exposure to that over the entire year, but then year over year over year, And then if that's love and a passion that they develop in that particular area, and then again, if they stay with us in high school, or even if they go elsewhere, that can become an elective course. And music is a good example of an elective course that students would do. So I think that would be one thing. And then also, too, and I mentioned this in my previous answer, the idea of really looking individually at a child, looking at their particular strengths, but then also looking where they need help, right? So, you know, a good example that we see now are some gaps in math. Many students that come into our program haven't had the foundation elements in math. And a good example would be maybe multiplication times tables, right? If they're not learning and memorizing those at a grade 2 or grade 3 age, the compounding effect of that now in grade 5, when you have to multiply mixed fractions, or you have to factor, or you're looking at order of operations questions for the first time. Not having certain mathematical facts just automatic to you at a younger age can lead to repercussions later on. So we are skilled at helping look at children in those areas to say, okay, how can we close that gap, right? So if that child has now come to us at a later grade, and math is very tied to your self-esteem. I give a very long and passionate speech about math that I could go on for, but it really is. Here's the exercise I ask for the viewer at home. In 10 seconds, you can usually answer how you feel about math. And most times it equates to between the ages of about 10 to 15 years of age. So if you haven't overcome that through a job or profession, it can really stick with you. So what we're trying to do at Hudson is not turn every child into a mathematician or an engineer, but we know that math is going to be a skill that you need. You basically can't drop math in high school any longer. So let's at least get you feeling strong enough in mathematical skills that it doesn't become a stigma for yourself later on, that you're always looking at a negative connotation of a particular subject.
And so on that note, is there a kind of student that wouldn't excel at Hudson College or just wouldn't be the right fit?
Always a hard question. We do pride ourselves at Hudson at looking individually at applicants that looking to join at Hudson, and we do have our own in-house assessments. Some schools may use the SSAT. We use our own in-house assessments, because the idea would be, if you gave this to, let's say you're applying for grade 7 for your son or daughter, so we would give a grade 6 assessment into grade 7 assessment. The idea was we could give that to our Hudson student right now, and the idea is the same assessment we would give for them would be applicable to the incoming student. So that's how we try to then give an answer to a parent, and it's not perfect by any means through the application process, but we can say with more higher level of comfort to say, okay, here's what the expectation would be if your child is with us at Hudson in this particular grade. Here's where we see them right now as a snapshot as part of their assessment. And let's use that example again of math and a gap. If the gap we feel is not insurmountable, in other words, it can be closed in a reasonable fashion, and by reasonable I don't mean weeks, it can take months. then we have some understanding of success that could be for a good applicant. However, and this is usually the tougher call, if we feel that the gap is just too wide, or perhaps the family has applied and looking at an IEP and there's more pronounced accommodations or modifications, then that's something that we're just not as equipped to be able to help that particular family.
So in terms of the academics, would you say they are on the more advanced side, or are they easily tailored to the individual student?
The answer that we like to give is we look to go deeper in knowledge. So, in some parents might look at some schools and they'll talk about acceleration. We don't like to use the word acceleration. We like to use the word deeper. I'll use novel studies as an example. So you can have a novel study in grade 6. Let's pick one of the books they use is The Giver, right? So The Giver talks about utopia and dystopia and looking at different utopias and dystopia societies and that. So there's wonderful inclusive activities that you can do as the teacher to, even before you get into the story, that help the children get on the same wavelength in terms of what are the themes of the novel, what's the author's perspective on this, what's going to be maybe your perspective on this, and then you deep dive into the novel. But within that novel, depending upon the overall reading level and comprehension level of the child, and then the writing input, you can have different sets of expectations for different students, all doing that same novel study, and then that's where you can get the extra rigor. So a child who is an excellent writer, who comprehends material at an above grade level, you can already be asking them things that are higher level grade requirements in that lower grade, knowing that that's not going to be punishment for that child, that's going to be their enrichment. That's one of the things we do really, really well at Hudson. And that's when we talk about individual approaches. Same would be for math. We use a program called Saxon Math. And again, children who are very proficient in math, if you give them just more questions, well, that could be one thing. But what's maybe more exciting for their mathematical part of the brain is to give them harder level questions that require, real, writing out of examples, maybe the riddles, or they're designed to take you 2 to 3 minutes for each question to answer. So that particular child, again, who excels at math, you can give them those higher level, deeper thought questions in that particular area. And then that's how you enrich that particular child.
Right. And then switching focus to families, is there a common thread that you find within the families that are drawn to Hudson College?
It's an excellent question. We do, as all schools, I think, try to create a healthy culture at Hudson. I believe we do. Again, it's a little different. We're not seeing the parents in the same way this year, but if I go from historical comments, number one, they really appreciate the communication. I think it takes them a little aback at the beginning, just the level and frequency, intensity of the communication they're going to get from their teachers and administration at Hudson. So I think that's something that parents end up really valuing. I think they see the real personality of each of their child's teacher, and they really get to know the individual as a human being and not just their child's teacher. So we see lots of positivity around those comments of teachers really understanding my child. And I think another comment that seems to happen a lot is just my kid gets out of bed and is excited to come to school. I don't have to motivate them to get dressed or eat their breakfast or get all their belongings together and get out the door to get to Hudson. They're happy. They're actually legitimately upset if they don't attend school. That's, so here, just to give you some perspective, this year, we have 222 elementary students. Only 6 are at home under our hybrid learning model. All the rest are here at Hudson. And the 6 that are home are only home for extenuating family health concerns. So I think that speaks to the level of comfort that parents have with the culture and safety protocols we've put in place this year. And a healthy environment we try to create here for them, for kids to have fun. It's about learning, but more importantly, it's about having fun at school.
In terms of values that you espouse at the school, is there any kind of particular value or trait that you find is attractive to families?
Parents, I think, really, when they talk to us, especially through the application stage, and then they sort of see it once their son or daughter is here with us, I think they really appreciate the inclusivity and the diversity at Hudson. The answer I always give to parents is we're an excellent reflection of the city of Toronto. It is one of the most multicultural cities in the entire world, and we value that diversity, we value that inclusiveness, and I think it's really reflected in the student body, not only just in elementary school, but also in high school too as well. Right? And that's a really rewarding part of what Hudson is all about. And having children, regardless of their background, they feel part of, they celebrate that part of who they are, and then they can be part of a larger community body that values them both on an individual level and also on a cultural level of who they are.
Is cultural diversity included or incorporated into school policies or even academics?
Well, so in terms of the calendar, we always will say to families, celebrate who you are. So if that means taking time off, and we just had Diwali, for instance, if we take time off for that, then please celebrate those very important cultural holidays and holy dates for those. Or, when we can, it'll be brought into in terms of the curriculum of making students understand it through the social sciences, through understanding what different cultures are a part of. I think that's important.
What is the culture like at Hudson College in the community, and how involved are families in school life?
Well, our motto at Hudson is be yourself, be anything. We've used this motto for many years. We like it because, the first part, to be yourself, hey, be yourself. We like who you are. It's a reason why you're here. You don't have to pretend to be someone else. So again, wake up with a positive attitude, come to a place where you're valued of who you are as an individual, and be surrounded by friends and peers and teachers who value who you are and want you to improve for yourself. And then to be anything part, because who knows what they're going to be. Who knows? That's the wonderful part of seeing children develop year over year, from a primary to junior age into intermediate, preteen, and then into high school. It's a wonderful journey that they go on, but we see it as a spectator and someone who's involved in helping them look at themselves and looking at areas that they're really excited about. So I think that continuity of culture, between the elementary part of the program and then the high school part of the program, we've really worked hard on that, so that, a child may, be in grade 7, but they have an understanding of who some of their high school teachers may be, or a child, again, may be at grade 4, but they know Mr. Minty as a grade 6. So it gives them something to look forward to as well. And I think that shines through in all aspects of the school.
And how do you handle communications with families outside of the school? Say if there's something that they should be aware of that happened during the school day, or if they need to address an issue with their child, or if there's a miscommunication between families and school administration that needs to be resolved.
Hey, excellent question. Again, we're big believers in constant communication. So you're going to get it starting in early years through programs like Seesaw. That's what we use kindergarten through grade 1. And then we rely heavily on Google Classroom for grade 2 and above for the rest of the program. You're going to get email communication. You get communication through Google Classroom. You might get individual calls. Example I always give is learning is not a straight line. Learning occurs in waves. There's times in which, your child is really moving along and everything feels natural and a little bit easy. And then there's times where things are really tough. And so part of that is understanding that journey and understanding there's going to be ups and downs to their academic life, but, emotional well-being too. And I think what you would want as a parent is for us to really understand them. I always say it has to be a really good symbiotic relationship between home and school. And then it works best when we understand that relationship. So a good example might be something has happened in the home life, which has caused a difference in the child's emotional outlook. And so if we understand that, we can help them. Right, because we can then understand what's going on in their home life, and we can adjust things and talk to them, make them and help them through maybe a tough part in that. The same would be true of academics. Is we will often say focus on yourself in terms of your academics. It's a natural human instinct to compare yourself to others around you, especially your classmates. But if you're putting in the maximum effort, if you can honestly say, I did the very best that I could, and this is the mark I got, then be happy with that. And parents, you be happy with that too, because it's about their personal education journey. They will all get to a point at which, and we see this, especially in grade 11 and 12, where they're going to worry constantly about where they're going to go off to college or university. We all know they're going to get there. And we'll help them through that extremely critical stage of their development too, by the way. But before that, make it about just their personal journey. And so, and again, if a child, let's use that math example. If they work so hard to achieve a B level, then we all need to be happy and satisfied with that. Conversely, if they can be self-reflective and say, well, you know what, I could have done more things. I could have sought out help. I could have worked through homework rooms. I could have maybe asked for more examples. I could have, studied a little bit better here. And if the answer to those questions is, yeah, I can make improvements, then we're going to help with that with you too.
Looking ahead at the next 5 or 10 years for Hudson College, do you see it changing in any way or growing, or is there an area that you would like to see expanded at the school?
Well, certainly these times have made you reflect as an educator to say, what is it that in the traditional sense pre-COVID worked, what is working now during these times, and then what can the future look that maybe has elements of the past that will hopefully never go away, but then elements of the future that can be new and exciting in them. I think what we have seen is that children learn best in the classroom, that teachers love learning in the classroom as well. Our goals are usually, in terms of a school improvement, is looking at areas of each part of the curriculum and saying, okay, where would we want, again, that whole idea of the backward mapping, where currently our students excelling in certain areas, where could we hope to have some additional improvements in those areas? Science is another big example here. We have a lot of budding scientists. We actively promote a very rigorous science curriculum. We want it to be extremely hands-on and experiential because we think students learn scientific principles best that way. I could see us hopefully developing larger robotics teams one day, because we do robotics with them when they're young. We integrate it through the junior part of the curriculum. Maybe that we do have it as a club in high school, but maybe that's an area that can see some real enrichment. Where we were planning on this year to join other teams and debate teams and real debates this year outside of the school, so I could see a growth in that. After many years of delay, we do have a beautiful new artificial turf field out the back. And as myself, who loves athletics and seeing children involved in athletics, it's a little painful to see it not occupied for athletic endeavors. So we belong to the SSAF, as do many schools throughout Toronto. So continued growth in academics, in athletics would also be a goal of ours too. And I think just to continue to evolve. I mean, one of the things we do pride ourselves as an 18-year-old school, and I think this is a benefit, is there is no one absolute set way of doing things. We think we do a lot of things well, but if a current or future student body is extremely interested in particular areas, we would be remiss to not look at those areas and look at the enthusiasm of the student body and try to not promote that passion in those areas. And that's part of what we really try to enrich from grade 8 to grade 12, is taking some real activism yourself in the types of clubs and activities and the extracurricular things that are available at Hudson, because it's something you're passionate about. If you can get enough peers to be passionate in that area, why would we not offer that?
Okay. And what's the relationship between Hudson College and the surrounding community and the bigger city of Toronto?
This has been our home since 2006, where we are in Earl's Court. So Dufferin and St. Clair. Our first 3 years we were just a little bit further north. I think we always want to be a good community partner. We always want the local community to see us as a real active member of the community. In known COVID times, we do have our grade 8s go out and serve in the community in different capacities to help serve some community service hours, but also give back to the local community. In high school, you have to serve 40 community service hours as part of your diploma. Some students will serve that internally as a Hudson student and as mentors or tutors. Others will choose to serve it locally within the community. I really hope this is our home now. We draw mostly from Central West to Toronto. It would be maybe as far as Etobicoke and Humber River to the west, maybe Highway 401 to the north, and actually all the way down to the lake still. So it's a larger catchment area than it would be, say, in a public school. But certainly from where we are, Dufferin and St. Clair, think of kind of concentric circles out from that. that's how the catchment goes from there.
Right. And what's your advice for parents who are in their search now?
The two analogies I give that I think really resonate with parents. First analogy I give is think about how you would buy a home. So you would make a priority list with you and your spouse and partner and say, okay, here's give yourself your number one priority, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe make a list of 10 things. And then you try to stick to that list, right? Because if you deviate too much from the list, you're going to wind up in a home that regrettably you'll wake up one day and maybe not want to move again. So I think the same can be true of a school. It's different, but make that list. Prioritize it exactly in the order from number 1 on down. Create that list of 10, and then interview the schools. Meet people like myself. We'll make available parents for you to talk to, teachers to talk to, and then if you find that now you're approaching an 8, 9 out of 10 match, I think you found an excellent educational match for your son and daughter. If you don't, then say to yourself, okay, if I want to stick to my principles, and these are the most important things, the good news is in a big city like Toronto, you do have choice. We want to be an excellent fit. I would never want to say to any family, we're the only fit, because we're not. There's so much great choice out there in a large city like Toronto. We want to be the right match. It only works when the fit feels so comfortable and so right, not only in the beginning, but again, over the long term. That's when you know you've made the right decision. And speaking of the long term, I often say, okay, your son or daughter's now in JK. Absolutely focus on JK and SK. But you know what? Look at what our program can offer them when they get to grade 2 or when they get to grade 5. Because I would hope when you do make a choice of a school, and especially a school like us that goes all the way up to the grades, that you're not just making it only because you like the kindergarten program. Obviously you need to, if that's the age of your child, but you should love us just as much and look forward just as much to down the road when, again, my child is now a grade 3 student, and now they're in grade 6, or now they're going to be in middle school. And so I think that's some real advice that I can give. My children are now 18 and 23. When I was building the school, I was looking at not only who they were in any particular grade, but what would the future hold. Every grade your child is in is the most important grade. But then when they get to the next year, that's the most important grade. And then the next year's, that's the most important grade. So what we do, I think, really well as an educational institution is be ready for that most important grade. Whatever grade it is that they're currently in, is we're ready to really help enrich them, help them excel, help them, again, feel great about themselves, but build in areas, socially, emotionally, all their development. So it makes them feel ready for that next great stage of their life.